The distress beacon had been silent for 43 hours when Commander Jace Varro's crew picked it up again, a phantom whisper threading through the cosmic static like a dying man's last breath. In the command center of Sigma Station, the massive holographic display showed 17 pulsing red dots at the edge of known space, each one representing a life that the Galactic Council had already written off. Jace stood before the assembled representatives of 9 different species, his weathered face illuminated by the cold blue light of the holodisplay. His uniform bore the patches of 37 successful impossible rescues, each one a testament to his crew's refusal to accept the word unrecoverable. Commander Varro, the Kalari representative, spoke, her crystalline form chiming with each word. The Council has already declared the Erebus 7 mining station a total loss. The Void Maw anomaly has consumed 60% of the structure. Our probability matrices show a 0.03% chance of successful extraction. With respect, Counselor, Jace replied, his voice carrying the gravelly undertone of someone who'd screamed too many orders through helmet comms. Your matrices don't account for human stubbornness. A ripple of disapproval passed through the gathered aliens. The Thraxian delegate's forearms gestured in what Jace recognized as exasperation. This is precisely why humans were initially denied council membership. Your species' inability to accept logical parameters has saved 3 of your own clutchmates in the past year alone, Jace interrupted, letting that fact hang in the air. The Thraxian's mandibles clicked shut. Behind Jace, his crew stood ready. Chief Engineer Tobias Wrench Moreno leaned against the doorframe, oil-stained and grinning, a wrench spinning lazily in his prosthetic left hand, a reminder of a rescue gone wrong that he'd never once regretted. Beside him, Lyria Moonwhisper stood perfectly still, her ethereal Aetherian form seeming to shimmer in and out of focus as she processed probability streams that existed just beyond normal perception. Her 6 fingers traced patterns in the air that only she could see, reading futures like sheet music. The beacon stopped transmitting 2 cycles ago, the Vrixie ambassador noted, her scales shifting to a pattern of finality. Even if survivors remained, the radiation exposure alone. We've handled worse radiation, Wrench interjected, his prosthetic hand clicking as he flexed the mechanical fingers. Remember the Cassius Nebula extraction? Radiation so thick you could taste colors. Still brought home all 15 colonists. 12 of whom required extensive genetic reconstruction, the Danebian counselor added, his fur rippling with disapproval. But they lived, Jace said firmly. They got to go home. They got to see their families again. The council chamber fell silent. On the holodisplay, those 17 dots continued to pulse, growing fainter with each passing moment. Jace knew what the other species were thinking, that humans were insane, that they valued individual lives over statistical probability, that they would throw away their own existence for strangers they'd never met. They were probably right. Commander Varro, the Council's presiding officer, an ancient Zelani whose bioluminescent patches had long since dimmed with age, spoke with careful deliberation. The Council cannot officially sanction this mission. The risk to your crew isn't yours to assess, Jace finished. We're not asking for permission. We're informing you of our intent. The Persistent Hope launches in 1 hour. You'll die, the Kalari representative said, not unkindly. Your ship is held together by improvisation and determination. The Void Maw has consumed vessels far more advanced. Lyria stepped forward then, her opalescent eyes reflecting impossible colors. When she spoke, her voice carried the dual-tone resonance that made even skeptics pause. In 93% of probability streams, we fail, she admitted, causing several counselors to nod in vindication. In 6%, we achieve partial success. But in 1%, one beautiful, impossible percent, we bring them all home. 1%, the Thraxian delegate scoffed. You would risk everything for 1%? Yes, Jace, Wrench, and Lyria said in unison. The Zelani counselor's patches flickered, surprise, perhaps, or something deeper. And what makes you believe you can achieve that 1%? Jace smiled then, the kind of smile that had convinced desperate colonies to hold on just a little longer, that had given hope to those floating in dead ships with failing life support. Because, Counselor, we've been beating worse odds since the day humanity figured out how to strap themselves to controlled explosions and call it spaceflight. We're the species that looked at the impossible and asked, but what if we tried anyway? He turned to leave, his crew falling in behind him. At the door, he paused, looking back at the assembled representatives. 17 souls are waiting in the dark, hoping someone, anyone, gives enough of a damn to come for them. We're going to be that someone. You can update their status from presumed dead to recovery in progress. Commander, the Zelani called out, causing Jace to turn. What if you're wrong? What if that 1% doesn't materialize? Then at least they'll know someone tried, Jace replied. Sometimes that's all any of us can hope for, that someone, somewhere, will think we're worth the effort. As they left the council chambers, Wrench pulled up beside Jace. You know they're placing bets on our failure, right? Let them, Jace said, his stride never faltering. We've made a fortune for the optimists over the years. The ship's barely holding together after that last rescue, Wrench continued, though his tone suggested he was already running through repair possibilities in his head. The hull stress fractures alone. We'll hold, Jace said firmly. They always do. Because I'm a genius, Wrench grinned. Because you're too stubborn to let physics win, Jace corrected. Lyria drifted alongside them, her movement more like floating than walking. The maw sings, she said suddenly, her eyes going white. I can hear it across the probability streams. It's hungry. And patient. It's been waiting. Waiting for what? Jace asked. For someone foolish enough to try, she whispered. Then, with a slight smile, for us. The persistent hope sat in docking bay 7 like a battle-scarred veteran refusing to retire. Her hull was a patchwork of different alloys and materials, some scavenged from derelicts, others donated by species grateful for past rescues. She wasn't pretty, but she was theirs. Medical Officer Dana Chen was already aboard, running through her inventory for the 4th time. A former combat medic who'd served in the Outer Rim conflicts, she had the kind of steady hands that could perform surgery during atmospheric re-entry. Her short black hair was streaked with premature gray, each strand, she joked, represented a miracle she'd pulled off. We're down to our last 12 doses of radical anti-radiation treatment, she reported as Jace entered the medical bay. After that, we're looking at experimental protocols. Define experimental, Jace said, though he was already checking the rescue equipment. The kind where I'm making it up as I go and hoping human stubbornness extends to the cellular level, Dana replied without looking up from her preparations. I've been synthesizing some compounds based on Thraxian regenerative enzymes. 60% chance they work, 40% chance they cause spontaneous organ liquefaction. Better odds than we usually get, Jace noted. That's what I said. Dana finally looked up, her brown eyes serious. Jace, 17 people. If even half of them have severe radiation poisoning. We'll handle it, Jace said. We always do. We can't save everyone, Dana said softly. It was an old argument between them, born from too many missions where they'd arrived just minutes too late. No, Jace agreed. But we can try. In the engineering bay, Wrench had his entire team, all 3 of them, working on reinforcing the hull. Crix, a young Vrixie whose scales constantly shifted between anxiety and determination, was welding additional support struts. The twins, Maxim and Marina, human siblings who communicated more in gestures than words, were recalibrating the shield harmonics. How's she looking, Wrench? Jace asked, running his hand along a hull section that had been patched so many times it looked like abstract art. Like a ship that should have been decommissioned 3 years ago, Wrench replied cheerfully. But I've rerouted power from non-essential systems, reinforced the stress points with some Calari crystal matrix I've been saving, and... He paused dramatically, installed a little surprise in the cargo bay. Do I want to know? Probably not. Plausible deniability and all that. Let's just say if we need a sudden burst of speed, we'll have it. Once. And we'll probably lose half our systems in the process. But we'll be moving? Oh, we'll be moving. Whether we'll be in one piece is another question entirely. On the bridge, Lyria had already interfaced with the navigation system, her consciousness partially merged with the ship's computer. It was a disturbing sight for most species, the way her eyes rolled back, showing only white, while her fingers danced over controls that responded to her thoughts more than her touch. "The route is complicated," she said, her voice coming from the ship's speakers as much as her throat. "The Void Maw exists partially outside normal spacetime. It feeds on certainty, on fixed probability. The more sure we are of our path, the more it can predict and counter us. So we need to be unpredictable," Jace summarized. "We need to be insane," Lyria corrected, a smile playing at her lips. Fortunately, that's never been a problem for this crew. The newest member of their team, communications specialist Riley Okonkwo, was bent over the comm array, fine-tuning receivers to pick up even the faintest signals. Riley had joined them after the Cassius Nebula incident, drawn by the crew's reputation for achieving the impossible. Their dark skin was marked with traditional scarification from Earth's African Confederation, each mark representing a life saved during their time as an emergency dispatcher on Mars colony. "I've isolated the beacon's last frequency," Riley reported. "It's weird, Commander. The signal degraded in a pattern I've never seen before. Like something was eating it." "The Maw consumes information," Lyria said, still partially merged with the ship. "Past, present, future, it's all food to it. The miner's distress call isn't just fading. It's being digested." "Cheerful," Wrench muttered over the comm. Jace settled into his command chair, feeling the familiar worn spots where countless hours of desperate missions had left their mark. Around him, his crew took their positions. This was the moment before the storm, the breath before the plunge. "All stations report," he commanded. "Medical standing by," Dana said. "Triage protocols loaded, emergency surgical suite prepped." "Engineering, mostly stable," Wrench reported. "I give a 70-30 odds of not exploding immediately." "Navigation locked," Lyria said, her voice gaining an echoing quality. "I can see the path. It's narrow, twisted, and probably impossible." "Communications operational," Riley added. "If there's even a whisper from those miners, I'll hear it." "Helm ready," announced their pilot, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Volkov, as she slipped into her seat. Sarah was another rescue, in a way, a former military pilot who'd been court-martialed for refusing to leave wounded soldiers behind during a retreat. Jace had recruited her the day she'd been discharged. Her hands on the controls were rock-steady, her gray eyes focused. Jace opened a ship-wide channel. "This is the commander. In approximately 6 hours, we'll reach the Erebus 7 mining station. The Council says the 17 souls aboard are already dead. The universe says the Void Maw can't be navigated. Physics says our ship can't handle the stress." He paused. "But when has any of that ever stopped us? We are the crew that pulled Ambassador Carrix's daughter from a collapsing star. We're the ones who dove into the screaming nebula to recover the colony ship Prometheus. We brought home the Martian 7 when everyone said they were dust." He stood, his voice gaining strength. "Today, we add another impossible rescue to our record. 17 people are counting on us to be too stubborn to accept defeat. So let's show the universe what human stupidity can accomplish." "All souls come home." "All souls come home," the crew chorused, and the persistent Hope's engines roared to life. Space near the Void Maw didn't follow rules. Stars appeared in the wrong positions, their light bent and twisted into spirals that hurt to perceive. Distance became subjective, objects that seemed parsecs away would suddenly loom large in the view screen, while the mining station they sought flickered in and out of visual range like a mirage. "Sensors are having a seizure," Riley reported, watching their equipment struggle to make sense of the impossible geometry. "I'm reading the station at 3 different distances simultaneously." "All 3 readings are correct," Lyria said, her voice distant and dreamy. "The Maw exists in multiple dimensional states. We're approaching all of them and none of them." "That's not helpful," Sarah muttered, her hand steady on the helm despite the sweat beading on her forehead. It's not meant to be helpful, Lyria replied. It's meant to be true. Turn 15 degrees starboard on my mark. Sarah responded instantly, and the ship shuddered as they passed through what felt like a membrane made of static electricity and dread. Hull temperature spiking, Wrench reported. Whatever we just flew through, it didn't like us. Through the view screen, the Erebus 7 station came into focus, or what was left of it. The structure had been twisted into an impossible shape, like a Mobius strip made of metal and despair. Parts of it existed in different time streams. They could see the station being built, destroyed, and existing simultaneously. How are there survivors in that? Dana whispered. The central core maintains integrity, Lyria answered, her eyes rolling back further, revealing veins of light beneath the surface. The miners were smart. They recognized what was happening and sealed themselves in the only section with stable causality. But the radiation. Dana checked her readings and blanched. They're swimming in it. Then we better hurry, Jace said. Sarah, bring us in close. Riley, try to establish contact. Riley's fingers flew over the communication controls. Erebus 7, this is Rescue Vessel Persistent Hope. We are on approach for emergency evacuation. Please respond. Static. Then, barely audible, a voice, human, male, exhausted, This is Erebus 7. You're not real. You can't be real. Everyone said. We're real, Jace took over the comm. This is Commander Jace Varro. We're here to bring you home. All of you. How many survivors? A long pause. 17. But the children are getting worse. The Maw, it whispers to them. Shows them things. Jace's jaw clenched. Hold on. We're coming. The approach to the station was like flying through a nightmare made manifest. Reality twisted around them, showing them visions of their own deaths, the ship exploding, being crushed, dissolving into component atoms. Lyria guided them through it all, her consciousness split between dozens of probability streams, finding the one narrow path that led to survival. There, she gasped suddenly, her physical body convulsing. Dead stop in 3, 2, 1. Sarah slammed the engines into full reverse, and the Persistent Hope screamed in protest. But they stopped just meters from the station's twisted hull. Docking is impossible, Sarah reported. The station's rotation it's rotating in 4 dimensions. I can't match it. Then we go in the hard way, Jace decided. Prep the EVA suits. Wrench, can you give us a stable field bridge? I can give you 10 minutes of semi-stable bridge, Wrench replied. After that, the power drain will start shutting down life support. 10 minutes, Jace nodded. Lyria, Dana, you're with me. Sarah, keep us steady. Riley, maintain communication with the survivors. Wrench, keep this bucket of bolts from falling apart. Got it, Commander. The EVA suits were another patchwork miracle, upgraded with scavenged tech from a dozen species. As Jace sealed his helmet, he could hear the Maw singing, a sound that wasn't quite sound, more like the universe humming a funeral dirge. Commander, Lyria said privately over the comm, I need to tell you something. In most probability streams where we succeed, not everyone makes it back. Who? Jace asked bluntly. It varies. But someone pays the price. The Maw demands it. Jace was quiet for a moment. Then, the Maw can demand all at once. I don't negotiate with cosmic anomalies. Despite everything, Lyria smiled. I knew you'd say that. It's why the 1% exists at all. The field bridge Wrench generated was a shimmering tunnel of energy connecting their ship to the station. Walking across it was like stepping on solid light while the universe tried to convince you that you didn't exist. Below, though direction had no meaning here, the Void Maw swirled, a hungry absence that pulled at their thoughts as much as their bodies. Halfway across, Dana stumbled, her suit's readings going haywire. Something's wrong. My suit's meditation field is failing. The meditation field was what kept humans sane in the presence of the Maw. Without it, the whispers would get in, showing you every failure, every regret, every possible death. "Share my field," Jace ordered, grabbing her arm and syncing their suits. His own protection weakened, and immediately he could hear them, voices of everyone he'd failed to save over the years. "You were 3 minutes late for the Ganymede colony. The Henderson's daughter died waiting for you. You could have saved them if you'd been faster." "Commander!" Lyria's voice cut through the whispers. "Don't listen. They're not real. The dead don't blame you." "How do you know?" Jace asked through gritted teeth. "Because I can see the probability streams where you saved them. In those streams, they lived full lives. They had children. They were happy. Their happiness exists, just in different quantum states. The Maw only shows you one possibility, but I see them all." Her words anchored him, and they pressed forward, reaching the station's airlock. Jace's cutting torch made short work of the C's door, and they pushed into the station proper. The inside was worse than the outside. Gravity flowed in different directions in different sections. Time stuttered and jumped. They would take a step and find themselves 3 steps back, or suddenly further ahead than they'd intended. The walls were covered in frost that formed fractal patterns that seemed to move when observed directly. This way, Lyria guided them, her perception cutting through the chaos. "The survivors are below. Or above. Or perpendicular to us. Direction is negotiable here." They found an emergency ladder that led in an impossible direction, straight forward yet somehow down. As they climbed, or walked, or fell, motion had become academic. They heard voices. Children crying. Adults trying to comfort them. And underneath it all, the Maw singing, growing stronger. There, Dana pointed to a heavy door marked with radiation warnings in 12 languages. "That's got to be the core." Jace pounded on the door. "This is Commander Varro, search and rescue. We're here to evacuate you." Silence. Then the wheel lock began to turn, slowly, as if the person on the other side could barely manage it. The door opened to reveal a scene that would haunt Jace's dreams for months to come. 17 people huddled in a space meant for 5. The adults had formed a protective circle around 3 children, a human boy, maybe 8, with radiation burns on his exposed skin, a Vrixie girl whose scales had gone gray and were starting to flake off, and a tiny Denebian whose fur had fallen out in patches, revealing skin covered in lesions. The man who'd opened the door, the shift supervisor according to his badge, reading Marcus Webb, looked like a walking corpse. His eyes were bloodshot, skin pale and papery, hands trembling. "You're real," he whispered. "You're actually real." "We're real," Jace confirmed, already helping him stand. "And we're getting you out. All of you." "The children first," Webb insisted. "Please. They've been exposed the longest. The Maw, it talks to them. Shows them things. Little Mira hasn't spoken in 2 days." The Denebian child, Mira, stared at nothing with all 4 of her eyes, occasionally whimpering at something only she could see. The human boy, Tommy, according to Webb, was trying to be brave, but tears had carved clean tracks through the grime on his face. The Vrixie girl, whose name was Sierra, was humming something that sounded disturbingly like the Maw's song. "Dana, triage protocols, now," Jace ordered. Dana was already moving, pulling out emergency rad treatments and administering them with practiced efficiency. "Commander," one of the miners, a Thraxian named Korvok, spoke up. "We need to tell you something. We sent one of our people for help 2 days ago. Jensen. He took an emergency pod, tried to get through the Maw to bring back help. The Maw took him. But not like you'd think. He's still out there. We can hear him on the comm sometimes. He's become part of it." As if summoned by his name, the comm system crackled to life. "Don't come for us." The voice was human but wrong, stretched and distorted. "We are already home." "That's Jensen," Webb confirmed, his voice breaking. He says that over and over. The Maw doesn't just consume matter, Lyria said, her eyes wide with understanding. It consumes consciousness. It feeds on self-awareness. Then we need to move fast, Jace decided. Before it gets hungry again. Getting 17 Radiation-6 survivors through a station that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously while reality twisted around them should have been impossible. But impossible was just another Tuesday for Jace's crew. I'm rigging portable meditation fields, Wrench's voice came over the comm sending them through the bridge now. They'll last maybe 20 minutes each. Small drones zipped across the energy bridge, each carrying field generators that Dana quickly distributed among the survivors. The children got the strongest fields, their minds were more vulnerable to the Maw's influence. Can you walk? Jace asked Webb. I can crawl if it means getting out of here, Webb replied with grim determination. That's the spirit. Jace helped him stand. All right, people, we're moving in groups of 6. Dana, you take the children and 3 adults. Lyria, you've got the middle group. I'll bring up the rear. Commander, Korvac spoke up, his forearms trembling. I should stay behind. The radiation, I've absorbed too much. I'm dying anyway. Let me hold the door, make sure everyone gets out. Nobody stays behind, Jace said firmly. That's not how we work. But. No buts. You're coming home, Korvac. Even if we have to carry you. The Thraxian's mandibles clicked, emotion that his species rarely showed. You humans, you're all insane. Thank you, Jace replied. Now move. The journey back through the station was a nightmare of shifting gravity and temporal stutters. At one point, they walked through a section where time moved backwards. They could see themselves entering the room before they decided to go through the door. The children whimpered, and little Tommy kept asking why there were 2 of everyone. Don't look at them, Dana instructed, keeping the children's faces pressed against her suit. They're just echoes. But Mira, the Denevian child, suddenly spoke for the first time in days. The Maw remembers. It remembers everything that was and will be. We're already dead. We're already saved. We're still waiting. All true. All now. She's experiencing temporal psychosis, Dana diagnosed. The Maw is showing her all possibilities simultaneously. Can you help her? Not here. We need to get her to the ship. They reached the airlock to find the energy bridge flickering. Wrench's voice came through, stressed. Whatever you're going to do it now. The Maw is pulling harder. I'm burning through power reserves just to maintain position. Move, move, move. Jace ordered. The first group started across, Dana with the children and 3 of the walking wounded. The bridge held, but barely. Energy sparked and flared around them. Halfway across, Syrah, the Vrixie girl, stopped walking and turned back. It's singing my name, she said, her voice distant. It knows my name. Keep walking, sweetheart, Dana urged, but the girl began moving toward the edge of the bridge. Without hesitation, Dana grabbed her, but the girl's scales began to glow, a Vrixie fear response that could lead to spontaneous combustion in extreme cases. Dana's suit temperature warnings screamed. Lyria! Jace called. The Aetherian was already moving, her consciousness splitting into multiple probability streams. She appeared to be in 3 places at once, next to Jace, on the bridge with Dana, and somehow ahead of them at the ship. It was an Aetherian ability they rarely discussed, as it violated several laws of physics. Syrah, Lyria spoke, her voice harmonizing with itself from multiple positions. I can see your future. All of them. In 90%, you live. You grow up. You become an artist. Your paintings of this moment, of surviving the Maw, inspire thousands. But only if you keep walking. The girl's scales dimmed slightly. You can see that? I can see you at 43, standing before your first gallery opening. Your clutch mother is there, crying with pride. Your mate holds your hand. Your children, yes, you have 3, are playing in the corner, making art of their own. But none of it happens if you stopped walking now. Sierra began moving again, and they made it to the ship. But the effort left Lyria collapsed, her form flickering between solid and translucent. That was dangerous, Dana admonished as she helped Lyria aboard. Everything we do is dangerous, Lyria replied weakly. At least this danger saved a life. The second group made it across, but the bridge was failing. Only Jace and the last 5 survivors remained, including Webb and Korvac. Bridge collapsed in 30 seconds, Wrench announced. Commander, you need to run. You heard him, Jace told the others. Move! They ran, or in Korvac's case, stumbled quickly. The bridge sparked and buckled beneath them. 20 meters from the ship, it began to dissolve entirely. Jump! Jace ordered. They leaped through the vacuum, the station's twisted gravity making the motion strange and dreamlike. Jace grabbed Korvac with one arm and Webb with the other, his suit's thrusters firing at maximum. They slammed into the ship's hull just as the bridge vanished entirely. Get us out of here! Jace shouted as they tumbled through the airlock. Sarah didn't need to be told twice. The Persistent Hope's engines roared, and they pulled away from the station. But the Maw wasn't done with them. It's following us, Riley announced, their voice tight with barely controlled fear. The Maw, it's actually moving. Pursuing us. Through the view screen, they could see it, a wound in space itself, spreading like spilled ink across the stars. Where it touched, light died. Where it passed, the universe forgot what had been there. That's not possible, Sarah said, even as she pushed the engines harder. Spatial anomalies don't chase ships. This one does, Lyria said, still recovering from her multiple positioning feat at tasted consciousness, 17 minds full of fear and hope. We're taking its food. Speed isn't working, Sarah reported. It's matching us. Exceeding us. Wrench, Jace called. That surprise you mentioned? Not yet, Wrench replied. We need distance first, or we'll just blow ourselves up along with it. In the medical bay, Dana worked frantically on the survivors. The children were in critical condition, their small bodies less able to handle the radiation exposure. She already used 8 of their 12 anti-rad treatments, and little Mira was seizing. I need more power to the medical equipment, Dana called out. Taking it from weapons, Wrench replied immediately. Not like we can shoot a hole in space anyway. The ship shuddered as the Maw's influence grew stronger. In the corridors, shadows began moving independently of their sources. The lights flickered in patterns that looked almost like code or laughter. Commander, Riley said suddenly. I'm picking up a transmission. It's Jensen. The miner who got absorbed. Put it through, Jace ordered. The voice that came through the speakers wasn't quite human anymore. It was layered, echoing, as if spoken by multiple versions of the same person. Stop running. Join us. The Maw is not death. It's all possibilities at once. Every choice you didn't make, every life you didn't live. I can see them all. I am them all. Jensen, Webb spoke up from where Dana was treating him. Jensen, this is Marcus. Fight it, man. Remember who you are. I remember everything, Jensen's voice replied. I remember futures that haven't happened. I remember pasts that never were. Your rescue fails in 800,000 variations. You succeed in 12. Would you like to know how you die, Marcus? I can see it. All the ways. Cut the transmission, Jace ordered, but it was too late. The words were already seeping into their minds. Several of the survivors began to panic. One of the miners, a human woman named Carol, began screaming about seeing her own corpse. Another was crying, saying he could see his family dying over and over. The Maw is using Jensen as a conduit, Lyria realized. It's projecting probability streams into their minds, showing them all the worst possibilities. Can you counter it? Jace asked. I can try, but... Lyria hesitated. I'll have to open myself fully to the probability streams. I might get lost. Define lost. My consciousness scattered across infinite possibilities. Unable to reassemble into a single timeline. Effectively dead, but also alive, but also never born. That's a no, then. Commander, Lyria said softly, those children won't survive if the Maw keeps projecting into their minds. Their psyches are too fragile. Jace was quiet for a moment, weighing impossible odds against impossible choices. Then, Wrench, can you boost Lyria's meditation field? Give her an anchor? I can try, but I'll need to pull power from engines. Do it. Commander, Sarah protested, if we slow down. Then we find another way, Jace said. We don't sacrifice crew. Not for any reason. As Wrench rerouted power, Lyria prepared herself. She sat in the center of the bridge, her 6 fingers weaving complex patterns in the air. Her skin began to glow brighter, cycling through colors that didn't have names. I'm going in, she announced, and her eyes went completely white. What happened next was hard for anyone to fully describe later. Reality seemed to hiccup. On the bridge, Lyria's form became translucent, then transparent, then began to exist in multiple states simultaneously. They could see dozens of versions of her, some sitting, some standing, some that had never joined their crew, some that had died years ago. Lyria! Jace called out, but his voice seemed to trigger more variations. Versions of himself appeared, older, younger, scarred, unscarred. One version was missing an arm. Another wore an admiral's insignia. Yet another was clearly dead, his ghost standing at his own shoulder. This is really unsettling, Wrench's voice came over the comm, but it was layered with other versions of himself speaking different words at different times. Riley was monitoring the survivors and reported, it's working. The children, they're stabilizing. Whatever Lyria's doing, it's blocking the Maw's projections. But on the screen, they could see the cost. Lyria was fragmenting, her consciousness spreading thinner and thinner across probability space. Parts of her were already fading, becoming nothing more than possibility without substance. We're losing her, Dana said, watching the medical reading sheet attached to Lyria before this began. Her neural patterns are dispersing. Lyria, Jace said, moving closer to her flickering form. You need to come back. Pull yourself together. Multiple versions of Lyria's voice responded, overlapping, can't, too many streams, the Maw is so hungry, it wants all possibilities, all choices, all of us. Then choose, Jace said firmly. Choose this timeline. Choose us. We're your crew. Your family. Come back to us. But there are so many versions where I save everyone, Lyria's voices said. Versions where the children never got sick. Where Jensen never got absorbed. Where we all live happily. Those aren't real, Jace interrupted. We are. This moment, this choice, this family, we're real. And we need you. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the multiple versions of Lyria began to converge. Not all of them, some faded away, possibilities unexplored. But the core of her, the Lyria who had chosen this crew, this mission, this impossible life, she solidified. She gasped, falling forward, and Jace caught her. Her skin was dim, almost gray, and her eyes were bloodshot. I saw it, she whispered. I saw how we win. How? Jace asked. We don't run, she said. We go through. Through the Maw? Sarah asked, incredulous. That's suicide. No, Lyria corrected, struggling to sit up. It's navigation. The Maw isn't just a predator. It's a doorway. A shortcut through probability space. But only if you're willing to pay the price. What price? Jace asked, though he suspected he already knew. Someone has to pilot us through. Someone who can see all the probability streams at once. Someone who can choose the one path that leads to survival. She met his eyes. Someone who might not come back whole. Absolutely not, Jace said immediately. We find another way. There is no other way, Lyria insisted. I've seen all the alternatives. In every timeline where we try to run, the Maw catches us. It consumes the ship, the survivors, everything. But there's one path, one single probability stream, where we dive into the Maw and emerge on the other side. What's the catch? Wrench asked. The pilot has to maintain consciousness while experiencing infinite possibilities. They have to choose, moment by moment, which reality to manifest. One wrong choice and we cease to exist. I'll do it, Jace said. You can't, Lyria replied. You don't have the perception. It has to be me. Or, a new voice said, it has to be me. They turned to see Mira, the little Danubian girl, standing in the doorway of the medical bay. Her 4 eyes were clear for the first time since they'd rescued her, and she was glowing, not with radiation sickness, but with something else. The Maw changed me, she said, her child's voice carrying an eerie wisdom. I can see like Miss Lyria now. All the possibilities. All the choices. And I'm small. The Maw won't notice me as much. Absolutely not, Dana said, moving to block the child. She's 8 years old. 8 years, 3 months, and 16 days, Mira corrected. In this timeline. In others, I'm older. Or younger. Or never born. But in the timeline where we survive, I help Miss Lyria. Together, we can do it. This is insane, Webb protested. We can't ask a child to. You're not asking, Mira interrupted. I'm volunteering. The Maw showed me something when it touched my mind. It showed me growing up. Having a family. Becoming a xenobiologist. Studying anomalies like itself. But only if we survive today. And we only survive if I help. Jace looked at Lyria, who nodded slowly. She's right. I can see it now. Both of us, together. It's the only way. If we're doing this, Wrench interjected, we need to do it now. The Maw is gaining on us, and I'm running out of tricks to keep us ahead of it. Jace made the hardest command decision of his life. Do it. They prepared quickly. Lyria and Mira sat together in the center of the bridge, hands clasped. Dana had injected them both with neural stabilizers, though she admitted she had no idea if they would help against probability fragmentation. Remember, Lyria told Mira softly, we're not looking for the perfect path. We're looking for the possible path. The one where we're together at the end. I understand, Mira said, her young voice steady. We choose family. We choose hope. Everyone strap in, Jace ordered. This is going to get weird. Weirder than it already is? Riley asked, but they were already securing themselves. Sarah turned the ship toward the Maw. On the view screen, it loomed, a hungry absence that seemed to grow larger the closer they got. Or perhaps they were growing smaller. Distance and size had ceased to have meaning. Entering the Maw's event horizon, Sarah announced, her voice tight. The ship lurched. Reality twisted. Suddenly, they weren't in one place but many. The bridge existed in dozens of variations, some where they'd already died, some where they'd never attempted this rescue, some where humans had never even evolved. Focus, Lyria said, her voice cutting through the chaos. Everyone, think about this moment. This choice. Anchor us. The crew concentrated, each holding tight to their identity, their purpose. Jace thought about every life they'd saved. Dana remembered every patient she brought back from the brink. Wrench focused on every impossible repair he'd managed. Sarah thought of every dangerous flight she'd navigated. Riley remembered every desperate message they'd answered. And in the center of it all, Lyria and Mira navigated through infinite possibility. Left, Mira said. No, right, Lyria corrected. Both, they said in unison, and somehow the ship went both directions at once. They passed through sections of space that shouldn't exist. They flew through their own past, saw themselves debating whether to take this mission. They flew through potential futures, saw themselves either celebrated as heroes or mourned as martyrs. There! Mira pointed at something only she and Lyria could see. The thread. The golden thread. It was a probability stream so unlikely it barely existed, a fraction of a percent. But it was there. The path through the maw that led to survival. Everyone hold on! Lyria shouted. The ship dove, not through space but through possibility itself. They experienced every choice they'd ever made and never made simultaneously. Jace saw himself as a farmer on Earth, never having left the planet. Dana saw herself as a patient instead of a doctor. Wrench saw himself as the designer of perfect, pristine ships that never needed repair. But they held on to who they were. Who they chose to be. Almost there, Mira said, her small body shaking with effort. Just a little more. The voice of Jensen, still trapped in the maw, echoed around them, "You can't leave." No one leaves. All possibilities end here. Wrong, Jace said firmly. We make our own possibilities. And with that declaration, they burst through. They emerged from the maw 47 light-years from where they'd entered, in clear space near Sanctuary Station. The journey should have taken weeks. It had taken minutes, or years, or no time at all. Time had become negotiable. Systems check. Jace ordered, shaking off the disorientation. Hull intact, Wrench reported, sounding amazed. Barely. We've got microfractures everywhere, but we're in one piece. Navigation, functioning, Sarah said, checking her instruments. Though the computer insists we've traveled backwards through time by 3 minutes. Communications operational, Riley added. And I'm picking up Sanctuary Station. They're hailing us. Asking if we need assistance. Medical systems online, Dana reported. Patients are. Commander, you need to see this. Jace moved to the medical bay, where he found something impossible. The 17 survivors were all alive, all stable. More than that, their radiation sickness was gone. Not treated, gone, as if it had never been. The maw, Lyria explained weakly. She was still holding Myra's hand, both of them exhausted but smiling. When we passed through it, we chose the probability stream where they were exposed to less radiation. We couldn't prevent it entirely, but we edited it. You changed the past? Jace asked. We selected a different past, Mira corrected, her child's mind somehow grasping concepts that would baffle physicists. One that was always possible, just very unlikely. Webb was staring at his hands in wonder. The radiation burns that had covered them were now just faint scars. How? Don't question it, Korvac advised, his 4 arms testing their strength. Humans do impossible things. Just accept it. Sanctuary Station, this is Commander Varro of the Persistent Hope, Jace said into the comm. We have 17 survivors from the Erebus 7 mining station requiring medical attention and debriefing. Persistent Hope, this is Sanctuary Control. Did you say Erebus 7? That station was declared lost to a Void Maw 3 days ago. Total loss, no possibility of survivors. Well, someone forgot to tell these 17 people they were impossible, Jace replied. Preparing to dock. As they approached Sanctuary Station, Webb moved to stand beside Jace. Commander, I need to ask you something. Why? Why risk everything for 17 strangers? Any other species would have written us off as acceptable losses. Jace was quiet for a moment, watching the stars wheel by, stars that looked normal again, that followed the laws of physics, that didn't threaten to show him infinite variations of himself. Because, he finally said, every person waiting in the dark, hoping against hope that someone will come for them, deserves to have that hope fulfilled. We've all been there, alone, afraid, certain that we've been forgotten. Humans know what that feels like. And we decided, as a species, that no one should have to feel that way if we can help it. Even if it's illogical? Especially if it's illogical. Logic would have left you to die. Logic would have said the risk wasn't worth the reward. But we're not logical. We're human. We're stubborn, reckless, and absolutely convinced that everyone deserves a chance to come home. Webb was silent for a moment. Then, thank you. Not just for saving us, but for caring enough to try. Docking at Sanctuary Station should have been a triumph. And in many ways, it was. Medical teams swarmed the Persistent Hope, whisking the survivors away for treatment they didn't really need anymore. Officials from the mining company fell over themselves thanking Jace's crew, promising bonuses and commendations. But something was wrong. Lyria felt it first, a tremor in the probability streams. "Commander," she said quietly, pulling him aside. "We're being watched." "Security?" Jace asked. "No. Something else. Something that followed us through the maw." Before Jace could respond, every screen in the docking bay flickered. For just a moment, they displayed impossible things, other versions of this moment, other outcomes. In one, the Persistent Hope exploded during docking. In another, they never made it at all. In yet another, the entire station was consumed by the maw. Then the screens returned to normal, and everyone pretended they hadn't seen anything. Debrief in 1 hour, the station commander, a Zilani named Praxis, informed Jace. "The council will want a full report on how you survived the maw." But during that hour, strange things kept happening. Riley reported that their communication logs showed conversations that had never happened or had happened but been erased. Wrench found repairs on the ship that he hadn't made, fixed with techniques he didn't know. Sarah discovered that the navigation computer had plotted courses to places that didn't exist or didn't exist yet. And Mira wouldn't let go of Lyria's hand. "It's still here," the little girl whispered. "The maw. Not all of it, but an echo. It's curious about us." "Curious?" Lyria asked. "We did something impossible. We went through it and came out whole. It wants to understand how." The debriefing was held in the station's main conference room, with representatives from multiple species attending via hologram. Jace gave his report, leaving out nothing: the probability navigation, Lyria and Myra's joint piloting, the journey through impossible space. The reactions were predictable. The Kalari representative declared it impossible. The Thraxian delegate insisted they must have hallucinated. The Vrixi ambassador's scales showed patterns of disbelief. "You're claiming," the Zilani counselor said slowly, "that you flew through a spatial anomaly that consumes matter, energy, and consciousness, and emerged not only alive but in better condition than when you entered?" "That's exactly what I'm claiming," Jace confirmed. "It's preposterous," the Kalari representative chimed. "The energy requirements alone are negligible if you're not moving through space but through probability," Lyria interrupted. "The maw doesn't exist in normal spacetime. It exists in quantum possibility space. We didn't travel through it so much as we selected which version of reality we wanted to emerge into." "That's not how physics works," the Thraxian delegate protested. "It's not how your physics works," Wrench said with a grin. "But humans have always been good at making physics do things it shouldn't." "You expect us to believe," the Vrixi ambassador said, "that humans have discovered a way to navigate probability space?" "No," Jace said. "I expect you to believe that we got lucky. That we threw ourselves at an impossible situation and somehow came out the other side. Because that's what humans do. We roll the dice on impossible odds and sometimes, just sometimes, we win." But the council wasn't satisfied. They wanted proof, data, something they could quantify and study. The problem was, how do you prove you traveled through possibility itself? The answer came from an unexpected source. "I can show you," Mira said, speaking up for the first time. All eyes turned to the small Danubian child. "The maw left something in me. In all of us who went through. I can show you what we saw." A child's testimony, the Kalari representative began dismissively. Is more valuable than you might think, a new voice said. Jace turned to see a figure materializing in the corner of the room, humanoid but indistinct, as if existing in multiple states simultaneously. It was Jensen. Or what Jensen had become. Security immediately went for their weapons, but the figure raised a hand. I'm not here to harm anyone. I'm here to confirm their story. You're the miner who was absorbed, Praxis said, his bioluminescent patches flickering with alarm. I was. I am. I will be, Jensen replied, his form solidifying slightly. The maw consumed me, yes. But it couldn't digest human consciousness. We're too contradictory, too stubborn. We refuse to accept single outcomes. So instead, I became part of it. And when the persistent hope passed through, I felt it. They carved a path through probability itself, held together by sheer determination and the absolute refusal to accept defeat. This is impossible, the Kalari representative insisted. Impossible is what humans do best, Jensen said. He turned to Jace. Commander, the Maw is still interested in your species. It's never encountered minds that can hold multiple contradictory truths simultaneously while still maintaining individual identity. You've given it something new to consider. Is that good or bad? Jace asked. That depends entirely on what humanity does next, Jensen replied. The Maw isn't evil. It's hungry, yes, but its hunger is for knowledge, for possibility. You've shown it that consciousness can navigate its depths without being consumed. That's never happened before. So what happens now? Webb asked from where the survivors were seated. Now, Jensen said, his form beginning to fade, the universe becomes a bit stranger. A bit more possible. The Maw will retreat, digest what it's learned. And humanity has proven that the impossible is just another word for challenge accepted. He vanished, leaving behind only the faint scent of ozone and possibility. The council was silent for a long moment. Then the Zelani counselor spoke. We will need time to process this information. In the meantime, Commander Varro, your crew is to be commended for their successful rescue operation, regardless of the unusual methods employed. Just another day's work, Jace replied. The weeks that followed were strange, even by the persistent hope standards. News of their passage through the Maw spread through human space and beyond, creating ripples of possibility that manifested in unexpected ways. Other rescue crews reported finding survivors in situations that should have been fatal, people who insisted they'd been saved by echoes of the persistent hope. Ships in distress reported seeing phantom versions of Jace's crew providing guidance before vanishing. The Void Maw itself began to behave differently, sometimes releasing ships it had captured years ago, their crews disoriented but alive. Mira had to be kept under observation. Her exposure to the Maw had changed her in ways that were still being understood. She could sometimes see probability streams without trying, would occasionally exist in two places at once, and had begun drawing complex mathematical equations that described the underlying structure of reality, equations that made physicists weep with their elegance and impossibility. She's evolving, Dana reported to Jace during one of their regular meetings. Her neural patterns are unlike anything I've seen. It's like her consciousness exists partially outside normal spacetime. Is she in danger? Jace asked. I don't think so. If anything, she seems more stable than before. Happier. She says she can see all the good futures now, not just the bad ones. Lyria had also changed, though more subtly. Her ability to perceive probability streams had been enhanced, but more importantly, she'd learned to anchor herself in the present, a skill she was teaching to other Aetherians. We always thought we had to choose between seeing all possibilities or living in one, she explained to Jace one evening as they watched stars go by. But humans taught us something different. You live in one possibility while acknowledging all the others. You accept that things could be different, but you commit to the choices you make. That sounds almost philosophical, Jace noted. Everything is philosophical when you can see infinite variations of it, Lyria replied with a smile. But philosophy without action is just dreaming. You humans, you act. Even when you know you might be wrong, you act. That's what saved us. The persistent hope underwent extensive repairs at Sanctuary Station. Wrench and his team essentially rebuilt her from the inside out, incorporating new technologies and some improvements suggested by Myra's probability-influenced drawings. The result was still a patchwork ship, but now she was a patchwork that could bend reality just a little bit when needed. "She's not pretty," Wrench said proudly, running his hand along a whole section that seemed to shimmer between existing and not existing. "But she's ours. And now she's touched by the Maw. She knows impossible spaces." The 17 survivors from Erebus 7 had all chosen to stay in touch. Webb took a position at Sanctuary Station, becoming a liaison for future rescue operations. Korvac returned to his clutch but sent regular messages of gratitude. Sierra, the Vrixie girl, had indeed begun painting abstract works that captured the experience of existing in multiple states simultaneously. And Tommy, the human boy, had declared his intention to join a search and rescue crew when he grew up. "Someone has to keep the tradition going," he said seriously. But perhaps the most significant change came from the Galactic Council. A month after the rescue, they issued a new directive, the establishment of a multi-species search and rescue initiative based on human principles but incorporating the unique abilities of various species. "They're calling it the Impossible Hope Initiative," Riley reported, reading the announcement. "Dedicated to attempting rescues that logic says are impossible. They're institutionalizing human stubbornness," Wrench laughed. "About time." But Jace knew it was more than that. The journey through the Maw had proven something that humanity had always believed but could never quite articulate, that the universe wasn't fixed, that probability wasn't destiny, and that sometimes, choosing to believe in the impossible made it possible. 3 months after the Erebus 7 rescue, the persistent hope was back in space, fully repaired and ready for whatever impossible task came next. The crew had grown. They'd added a Thraxian engineer who'd specifically requested to work with Wrench, and a young human pilot who graduated top of her class after writing her thesis on probability navigation. They were in the middle of a relatively routine supply run when the call came in. "Commander," Riley said, their voice carrying that particular tension that meant something big was happening. "We're getting a distress signal. It's unusual." "Unusual how?" Jace asked, already moving toward the bridge. "It's coming from inside a black hole." The bridge went silent. Even for them, that was impossible. Nothing could escape a black hole's event horizon. It was the one absolute rule that even human stubbornness couldn't break. Or so they thought. "Play it," Jace ordered. The message was fragmented, distorted by gravitational forces that shouldn't have allowed it to exist at all. But underneath the static and warping, there was definitely a voice. Multiple voices. Human and alien, all calling for help. "Trapped, time distortion, please, anyone, 47 souls, children aboard, running out of, if anyone can hear." "That's the colony ship aspiration," Sarah said, checking the registry. "They disappeared 6 months ago. Presumed destroyed when they got too close to the Xerxes singularity. The black hole pulled them in but hasn't destroyed them," Lyria said, her eyes already going white as she examined probability streams. "They're caught in the ergosphere, the space just outside the event horizon where spacetime is dragged around the black hole. Time is moving differently for them. Those 6 months were maybe 6 hours from their perspective." "Can we get them out?" Jace asked. "Not through normal space," Lyria admitted. But, Jace prompted. "The Maw touched us. Changed us. Our ship exists partially in probability space now. We might be able to slip through the ergosphere by existing in a probability where we're both inside and outside simultaneously." "That's insane," the new pilot said. "Yes," Jace agreed. "It's also what we're going to do." The Thraxian engineer clicked his mandibles nervously. "Commander, the energy forces near a black hole are just another form of impossible," Wrench interrupted. "And we eat impossible for breakfast." All souls come home, Jace said, and the crew, old and new, echoed him. All souls come home. Approaching a black hole was nothing like approaching the Void Maw. The Maw had been hungry but negotiable, a predator that could be understood. The Xerxes singularity was absolute, a point where the universe's rules didn't just bend but broke entirely. Gravitational shear increasing, Sarah reported, her hand steady despite the sweat on her forehead. We're entering the outer influence zone. Through the view screen, they could see it, or rather, they could see the absence of it. The black hole was a perfect sphere of nothing, surrounded by the brilliant accretion disk of matter spiraling toward its doom. But there, caught in the ergosphere like a fly in amber, was the colony ship Aspiration. It's not moving, the new pilot observed. From our perspective, it's frozen. Time dilation, Lyria explained. They're experiencing seconds while we experience minutes. But that works in our favor. We'll have time to plan while they barely notice we're there. How do we get them out without getting caught ourselves? Dana asked. We don't, Mira said. She'd been brought to the bridge for this, her unique perception might be needed. We get caught on purpose. Then we escape from inside. That's impossible, the Thraxian engineer said. Nothing escapes a black hole. Nothing normal, Mira corrected. But we're not normal anymore. The ship carries echoes of the Maw. We can exist in multiple states. We just have to choose the state where we escape. It was the kind of logic that made sense only if you didn't think about it too hard. Which, Jace had learned, was often the key to impossible rescues. Wrench, can you modify our shields to handle the gravitational stress? Already on it, Wrench replied from engineering. I'm inverting our probability field, making us exist in a state of constant quantum flux. We'll be torn apart and intact simultaneously. I hate quantum mechanics, Sarah muttered. Quantum mechanics hates you back, Wrench said cheerfully. That's what makes it fun. They dove toward the black hole, reality stretching around them. The stars elongated into streams of light. Time became taffy, pulling and distorting. On the bridge, Lyria and Mira sat together again, their consciousness expanded to navigate the impossible space. There, Lyria pointed at something only she could see. A probability thread that goes in and comes out. It's so thin, Mira whispered. Less than a fraction of a %. Then we'd better not miss it, Jace said. They entered the ergosphere, and immediately everything went wrong. Or right. Or both. Time shattered. They experienced the next moment, the last moment, and moments that never were all at once. Jace saw himself as an old man, dying peacefully in bed. He saw himself as a child, dreaming of stars. He saw himself never born, the rescue never attempted, the Aspiration's crew dying slowly in the dark. Focus! Lyria's voice cut through the chaos. Remember who we are. Remember why we're here. 47 souls, Jace said through gritted teeth. Children aboard. All souls come home, the crew chanted, using it as an anchor against the temporal storm. They reached the Aspiration, which from their perspective was moving like a video played at 1 frame per hour. Docking was impossible in any conventional sense. So they didn't dock conventionally. Probability lock, Mira announced. We're choosing the timeline where we're already docked. Reality hiccuped, and suddenly they were connected to the colony ship. But the connection was strange, they were docked and not docked, touching and separate. I'll go, Jace said, suiting up. Not alone, Dana insisted. Those people have been in time dilation for months. They'll need medical attention. The transition between time states could kill them, the Thraxian engineer warned. Or you. Only one way to find out, Jace said. Stepping onto the Aspiration was like walking through jelly. Every movement had to push through layers of compressed time. Jace could feel seconds passing differently for different parts of his body, his left hand experiencing moments before his right, his head existing slightly in the future compared to his feet. The colonists were statues, frozen mid-motion. A child's ball hung in the air, dropped but not yet falling. A woman reached for a control panel she would never touch, not if they stayed in this time stream. How do we get them out? Dana asked, her voice distorted by temporal shear. We synchronize them with our timeline, Jace said, remembering something Lyria had explained. We choose the probability where they're moving at our speed. It sounded simple. It wasn't. Each person had to be touched, their timeline manually adjusted. And with each adjustment, Jace and Dana aged, minutes, hours, days compressed into seconds. By the time they had synchronized half the colonists, Dana's hair had visible gray streaks. We're aging too fast, she said, checking her medical scanner. At this rate, we'll die of old age before we save them all. Then we need help, Jace said. He activated his comm mirror. Can you slow our aging? Not slow, the child's voice came back. But I can make it temporary. The years you're gaining, they're not real years. They're probability years. When we leave the ergosphere, you can choose to keep them or lose them. That makes no sense, Dana said. Welcome to my life since the Maw, Jace replied. Keep going. They continued, synchronizing colonist after colonist. Children who'd been frozen mid-laugh suddenly gasped. Adults who'd been reaching for loved ones completed their gestures. And with each person saved, Jace and Dana aged more. By the time they reached the bridge, Jace looked 20 years older. Dana's hand shook with palsy. But they pressed on. The aspiration's captain, a human named Rodriguez, gasped as time reasserted itself around him. What? Who? How long? 6 months on the outside, probably minutes for you, Jace explained quickly. We're here to get you out, but we need to move fast. Our ship can't maintain this probability state much longer. Probability state? Rodriguez asked. Don't think about it too hard, Dana advised. Just get your people ready to evacuate. But there was a problem. Several of the colonists were too weak to move. The time dilation had affected them strangely, aging some parts of their bodies while leaving others young. One man had the heart of an elderly person but the muscles of a youth. A child had aged mentally but not physically, speaking with the wisdom of decades in a 5-year-old's body. We can't move them like this, Dana said. The shock could kill them. Then we fix them here, Jace decided. Mira, can you stabilize their timelines? From here? Myra's voice sounded strained. I'd have to project my consciousness through the probability lock. It could fragment me. Like it did before? Worse. The black hole doesn't just bend space. It bends possibility. I might scatter across every potential future and never reassemble. Jace was quiet for a moment. Then, I won't ask you to. You don't have to ask, Mira interrupted. All souls come home, remember? Even mine. Part 14, The Child Who Saved Tomorrow. What happened next would be debated by physicists and philosophers for generations. Mira, an 8-year-old Danubian child touched by impossible space, projected her consciousness through a probability lock into a ship trapped in the ergosphere of a black hole. She appeared on the aspiration not as one form but as dozens, every age she might ever be, from infant to elder, all existing simultaneously. Each version of her touched a different colonist, synchronizing their timelines, healing the temporal damage. It's beautiful, one of the colonists whispered, watching the child exist in all her possibilities at once. She's showing us what we could be. But the strain was visible. The younger versions of Mira were fading first, possibilities that would now never be. She was burning through her own future to save others. Stop, Jace ordered. You're killing your other selves. Not killing, Mira said through multiple mouths at different ages. Choosing. I'm choosing this moment, this action. All my other possibilities lead here anyway. She's right, Lyria's voice came over the comm, tight with awe and fear. I can see it. Every version of Mira, in every timeline, makes this same choice. It's a fixed point in probability. She always saves them. The colonists were healing, their timeline stabilizing. The man with the aged heart watched it grow young again. The mentally aged child returned to innocence. And through it all, Mira smiled. Every version of her, at every age, smiled. "This is why the Maw let us go," she said, her voices harmonizing across ages. "It saw this moment. It knew I needed to be here." When the last colonist was stabilized, Mira's multiple forms collapsed back into one, the 8-year-old girl they'd rescued from Erebus 7. But she was different now. Her fur had patterns in it that shifted like probability streams. Her 4 eyes each showed a different age, as if she was looking at the universe from multiple points in her own timeline. "We need to go," she said simply. "The black hole has noticed us." Getting 47 colonists from the aspiration to the persistent hope while trapped in the ergosphere of a black hole should have been impossible. But impossible had become their specialty. "Form a chain," Jace ordered. "Everyone hold hands. We're going to share our probability state." "That's not how physics works," one of the colonists, a scientist, protested. "It is now," Dana said, her aged hand steady as she helped organize the evacuation. They formed a human chain, human and alien, young and old, all connected. And as they did, something strange happened. Their individual timelines began to sync, not through technology or alien abilities, but through sheer human stubbornness and the absolute refusal to leave anyone behind. "The black hole is increasing its pull," Sarah reported from the persistent hope. "Whatever you're doing, do it faster." "We're coming," Jay said, leading the chain of colonists through the impossible space between ships. Each step was a battle against time itself. The black hole pulled at them, trying to stretch them into spaghetti, trying to trap them in eternal moments. But they kept moving. Halfway across, Rodriguez's daughter, a girl no older than Tommy had been, lost her grip. She began to drift, not through space but through time, aging rapidly as the black hole's influence caught her. Without hesitation, Mira let go of the chain and dove after her. In that moment, she existed in every possible state, the one where she saved the girl, the one where they both died, the one where they never existed at all. "Choose," Lyria whispered, her consciousness stretched to its limit. "Choose the reality where you both live." "I choose all of them," Mira said, and suddenly she was everywhere at once. She caught the girl in every timeline, saved her in every possibility. The black hole, faced with a consciousness that refused to collapse into a single state, loosened its grip just for a moment. It was enough. They tumbled onto the persistent hope, all 47 colonists plus Jace and Dana. The airlock slammed shut. "Go, go, go!" Jace shouted. Sarah didn't need to be told twice. She fired the engines, but they barely moved. The black hole's gravity held them like a fist. "Wrench, that surprise you mentioned." "Already on it." Wrench's voice came back. "Everyone hold on to something. This is going to redefine Rough Ride." In the cargo bay, Wrench activated his impossible modification, a probability drive made from components that shouldn't exist, powered by the contradiction of being both inside and outside the black hole simultaneously. It was insane. It was impossible. It was perfect. The persistent hope didn't move through space. Instead, it decided it had always been somewhere else. The black hole, faced with prey that simply refused to acknowledge its existence, released them. They appeared 17 light-years away, in empty space, alarms screaming and half their systems offline. "Status report," Jace demanded. "We're alive," Sarah said, disbelief in her voice. "We're actually alive." 47 colonists, all stable, Dana reported. Then, looking at her hands, she gasped. The age she gained in the ergosphere was fading, the probability years dissolving like a bad dream. The temporal aging, it's reversing. "Told you it wasn't real," Mira said weakly. She was lying on the floor, her form flickering slightly. "Just possibility." "Are you okay?" Jace asked, kneeling beside her. "I'm all my ages at once now," she said, her 4 eyes each showing a different stage of life. It's confusing but also complete. I know who I'll be. All the versions of who I'll be. Is that good? She smiled. I become a teacher. In every timeline, I become a teacher. I teach people how to navigate impossible spaces. How to save people who can't be saved. She looked at Jace. I teach them what you taught me. That all souls come home. Epilogue, the impossible made routine. 1 year later, the Impossible Hope Initiative had 17 ships operating across known space, each one crewed by people who understood that the universe's rules were more like guidelines. The Persistent Hope remained the flagship, not because it was the best ship, but because it was the first to prove that impossible was just another word for haven't done it yet. Jace stood on the observation deck of New Horizons Station, watching the latest class of search and rescue trainees. They were a mix of species: human, Thraxian, Kalari, Vrixi, Denebian, and others. All of them had one thing in common: they believed in the impossible. "Commander," a voice said behind him. He turned to see Webb, now wearing the uniform of a rescue coordinator. "We've got a situation. Colony on the edge of a quantum storm. Everyone says evacuation is impossible." "Everyone?" Jace asked with a smile. "Everyone except us." Jace nodded. "Prep the Hope. Tell the crew we launch in an hour." "Yes, sir." "Oh, and Mira asked me to give you this." Webb handed him a drawing. It showed the Persistent Hope diving through impossible spaces, saving people who couldn't be saved, with probability streams flowing around it like wings. At the bottom, in a child's handwriting that somehow contained the wisdom of ages, were the words, "Thank you for teaching me that hope is stronger than possibility." Jace smiled, tucking the drawing into his pocket. Through the window, he could see the Persistent Hope being prepped for launch. She was still ugly, still held together by patches and prayers, still the most beautiful ship in the fleet. His comm buzzed. "Commander," Lyria's voice came through, "we're receiving multiple distress signals. A solar flare caught 3 ships by surprise. 200 souls in danger. Coordinate with the other rescue ships," Jace ordered. "We take the most damaged one. That would be the one currently inside the star's corona." "Of course it is," Jace said, already moving toward the dock. "Tell Wrench to prep for heat shields that shouldn't work but will anyway." "Already done," Wrench's voice cut in. "Also, I've got a new modification. We can exist as plasma for about 30 seconds now." "That's insane." "That's Tuesday." As Jace boarded the Persistent Hope, he found his crew ready and waiting. Sarah at the helm, her hand steady. Riley at communications, already calculating optimal frequencies for cutting through solar interference. Dana in medical, prepping for radiation treatment. The Thraxian engineer, who'd taken the human name Bob for reasons no one understood, calibrating shields with Wrench. The new pilot learning from Sarah. And Lyria, her consciousness already expanding to see the probability streams. "The Council says this rescue has a 0.001% chance of success," Riley reported. "So we're improving," Jace said, settling into his command chair. "Last time it was 0.0001. Progress," Sarah agreed. "All souls come home," Jace said. "All souls come home," his crew echoed. The Persistent Hope launched, diving toward a star to save people who couldn't be saved, to do the impossible one more time. Because that's what humans did. That's what they taught the universe to expect. In her quarters on New Horizons Station, Mira watched them go, her 4 eyes seeing all the possibilities. In 99% of them, the rescue succeeded. In the 1% where it didn't, another ship would try, and another, until someone succeeded. Because humans had infected the universe with their stubborn hope, their absolute refusal to accept that anyone was beyond saving. The Void Maw, in its strange dimension, observed and learned. Black holes found themselves occasionally releasing ships they'd captured. Quantum storms parted for rescue vessels. The universe itself was slowly, impossibly, learning to hope. All because one species looked at the impossible and said, "But what if we tried anyway?" The persistent hope disappeared into the star's corona, shields flaring with impossible energy, carrying her crew toward another impossible rescue. And somewhere in the vast dark between stars, another distress beacon flickered to life, its signal carrying a new undertone, not just desperation, but hope. Hope that someone would come. Hope that someone would care. Hope that even in the darkest void, all souls could come home. End.